The morning sun cast long shadows across the royal stables as Queen Camilla walked purposefully down the cobblestone path. Her riding boots clicked against the stones with determination, echoing through the quiet courtyard of Windsor Castle. Today was different from her usual routine visits to the horses. Today she had made a decision that would shock everyone who knew the history behind the magnificent black stallion housed in the far stable. Thunder was no ordinary horse. The 17-hand Frisian stallion had been Queen Elizabeth's most beloved companion for over 15 years. His glossy black coat shimmered like silk in the sunlight, and his powerful build commanded respect from anyone who laid eyes on him. The late Queen had hand-selected Thunder as a young colt, recognizing something special in his intelligent dark eyes and graceful movement. Royal Guard Captain James Mitchell had served the monarchy for 23 years. He knew every protocol, every tradition, and every unspoken rule that governed royal life. As he stood near the stable entrance checking the daily security roster, he noticed Queen Camilla approaching with an unusual sense of purpose. Something in her stride told him this wasn't going to be a routine morning. Thunder had been the late Queen's sanctuary during difficult times. When the pressures of royal duties became overwhelming, she would spend hours grooming him, talking softly about matters that troubled her heart. The stallion seemed to understand every word, responding with gentle nods and soft whinnies. Their bond had been legendary among the stable staff, who often said Thunder grieved harder than anyone when Queen Elizabeth passed away. Queen Camilla stopped before Captain Mitchell, her chin raised with royal authority. The morning breeze caught her perfectly styled hair, as she spoke words that would create the most unexpected confrontation in recent royal history. Her request was simple yet shocking. She wanted to ride Thunder immediately. Despite knowing full well the emotional significance the horse held for the royal family and staff, Captain Mitchell felt his stomach tighten as he processed her words. He had witnessed countless royal requests over his decades of service, but this one felt different. This one felt wrong. Thunder hadn't been ridden since Queen Elizabeth's final ride just weeks before her death. The horse had been treated almost like a living memorial, carefully tended but left undisturbed in his grief. The stable hands working nearby pretended to busy themselves with their tasks, but their ears were tuned to every word of the conversation unfolding. They exchanged worried glances, knowing the emotional weight of what Queen Camilla was asking. Some of them had worked with Thunder for years. Watching him pine for his beloved mistress who would never return, Captain Mitchell cleared his throat carefully, choosing his words with the precision required when addressing royalty. He explained that Thunder hadn't been prepared for riding, that the horse was still adjusting to life without Queen Elizabeth, and that perhaps one of the other magnificent horses in the royal stable would be more suitable for her morning ride. Queen Camilla's expression hardened at his gentle resistance. She was not accustomed to having her wishes questioned, even diplomatically. Her voice carried the unmistakable tone of someone who expected immediate compliance with her desires. She reminded Captain Mitchell of her position and made it clear that she intended to ride Thunder whether he approved or not. The tension in the air became thick enough to cut with a knife. Other royal guards began to take notice of the unusual exchange, positioning themselves within earshot while maintaining their professional composure. This was unprecedented territory, a direct conflict between royal authority and the protective instincts of those who serve the crown with deep emotional investment. Thunder seemed to sense the commotion, moving restlessly in his stall and letting out a low whinny that sounded almost mournful. The stallion's reaction only strengthened Captain Mitchell's resolve that this was not the right course of action. He had sworn an oath to protect the royal family, but he had also made personal promises to honor Queen Elizabeth's memory in every way possible. Captain Mitchell took a deep breath and made a decision that would define his entire career. Standing straighter, he looked directly into Queen Camilla's eyes and spoke with quiet but firm conviction. He could not, in good conscience, allow Thunder to be ridden today. His words hung in the morning air like a challenge that neither of them had expected to face. The Queen's face flushed with surprise and growing anger. In all her years of royal life, she had never been directly defied by a member of the royal guard. Her voice rose slightly as she demanded to know by what authority he dared to refuse her direct order. The confrontation was no longer subtle or diplomatic. It was a full-scale battle of wills. Stable Master Robert Hayes emerged from Thunder's stall, having overheard the escalating conversation. The elderly man had worked with royal horses for 40 years and had personally cared for Thunder since he was a young colt. His weathered hands trembled slightly as he approached, knowing he was about to insert himself into a situation that could cost him his job. Hayes spoke with the gentle authority that came from decades of experience with both horses and royalty. He explained that Thunder was not just grieving, the stallion was showing signs of deep depression. The horse barely ate, rarely left his stall willingly, and had been rejecting attempts by other riders to exercise him. Forcing him to accept a new rider, especially so soon after Queen Elizabeth's death, could cause psychological damage that might never heal. Queen Camilla's frustration was evident as she listened to what she perceived as excuses and insubordination. She pointed out that horses were animals, not humans, and suggested that the staff was being overly sentimental about a situation that required practical resolution. Thunder needed exercise, and she was perfectly capable of providing it. Her logic was sound, but it missed the deeper emotional currents flowing through this confrontation. Captain Mitchell found unexpected support from an unlikely source. Princess Anne, who had been walking her dogs nearby, approached the group with purposeful strides. Her reputation for plain speaking and fierce protection of royal traditions made her arrival a game-changing moment. She had heard enough of the conversation to understand what was happening, and her expression made her position clear. The princess addressed Queen Camilla with the blunt directness that had made her both respected and sometimes feared within the royal family. She explained that Thunder was not simply another horse in the royal stable, he was a living connection to her mother's memory. Every person who had worked closely with Queen Elizabeth understood this, and to treat Thunder as merely another mount showed a concerning lack of sensitivity to the family's grieving process. Queen Camilla found herself facing opposition from multiple directions. The stable staff, the royal guard, and now a senior member of the royal family were all aligned against her seemingly reasonable request. What had started as a simple desire for a morning ride had transformed into a test of respect for royal traditions and the memory of the beloved late queen. The conversation attracted the attention of other castle staff, who watched from respectful distances while pretending to go about their duties. Word was already beginning to spread through the castle's intricate network of employees, each of whom had their own relationship with Thunder and memories of Queen Elizabeth's devotion to the magnificent stallion. Captain Mitchell realized he was at a crossroads that would define not just this moment, but his entire future with the royal guard. He could back down, apologize, and allow Queen Camilla to ride Thunder, preserving his position but potentially betraying everything he believed about honoring the late queen's memory. Or he could stand firm, accepting whatever consequences might follow, but maintaining his integrity and protecting a grieving animal from what he believed was an insensitive demand. Thunder's behavior became increasingly agitated as the human tension escalated around his stall. The intelligent stallion seemed to understand that he was the center of a conflict, and his distress was visible to everyone present. His ears flattened against his head, and he backed toward the far corner of his stall, clearly uncomfortable with the raised voices and confrontational energy. The morning sun climbed higher in the sky as the standoff continued, with neither side willing to back down from their position. What had begun as a simple request had evolved into something much larger, a fundamental disagreement about respect, tradition, and the appropriate way to honor the memory of Britain's longest-serving monarch. King Charles arrived at the stables unexpectedly, having been informed by his security detail about the unusual commotion. His presence immediately changed the dynamic of the confrontation, as all parties recognized that the ultimate authority had arrived to resolve the dispute. The king's expression was unreadable as he surveyed the scene, his wife facing off against his mother's most loyal servants over his mother's beloved horse. Captain Mitchell felt a mixture of relief and apprehension as he prepared to explained his position to the king. He had served the royal family faithfully for over 2 decades, but he had never before found himself in such a delicate situation. His career, his reputation, and his financial security all hung in the balance as he prepared to justify his unprecedented decision to refuse a direct royal command. The king approached Thunder's stall first, speaking softly to the agitated stallion in the gentle tone he had learned from his mother. Thunder's ears perked up slightly at the familiar royal voice, and he moved cautiously toward the front of his stall. The connection between the horse and the royal family was immediately evident, and everyone present could see the emotional weight of the moment. Queen Camilla began to explain her perspective to her husband, emphasizing that she had simply wanted to ensure Thunder received proper exercise and attention. She pointed out that keeping the horse isolated and underridden was not healthy for such a magnificent animal. Her reasoning was practical and showed genuine concern for Thunder's physical well-being, even if others questioned her understanding of his emotional state. Princess Anne remained silent but positioned herself strategically near Captain Mitchell, her presence serving as a subtle but clear indication of her support for the guard's decision. Her decades of experience with horses and her intimate knowledge of her mother's relationship with Thunder gave her perspective significant weight in the unfolding drama. Stable Master Hayes seized the opportunity to provide the king with crucial information about Thunder's condition since Queen Elizabeth's death. He described how the stallion had refused food for days after the funeral, how he had stopped responding to his favorite treats, and how he seemed to be searching for his beloved mistress every time someone approached his stall. The horse's grief was real and profound, requiring careful and patient management. King Charles listened carefully to all perspectives, his expression growing more thoughtful with each piece of information. He understood both his wife's practical concerns and the deeper emotional issues surrounding Thunder's care. As someone who had grown up around these horses and had witnessed firsthand the extraordinary bond between his mother and Thunder, he faced a decision that required balancing family harmony with respect for his mother's memory. The king asked Captain Mitchell directly about his reasoning for refusing Queen Camilla's request. The guard's response was measured but passionate, explaining that his oath to serve the royal family included protecting not just their physical safety, but also preserving the dignity and traditions that defined the monarchy. In his view, forcing Thunder to accept a new rider before he had properly grieved would be a betrayal of Queen Elizabeth's trust and legacy. Queen Camilla's frustration was evident, as she listened to what she perceived as emotional manipulation disguised as duty. She argued that anthropomorphizing Thunder's behavior was preventing them from making rational decisions about his care. Horses needed routine, exercise, and structure, not endless coddling that might actually prolong any adjustment difficulties he was experiencing. The tension reached its peak as husband and wife found themselves on opposite sides of an issue that had implications far beyond a simple morning ride. This was about authority, respect, tradition, and the delicate process of establishing new routines while honoring old memories. Every person present understood that the king's decision would set precedents for how the royal family would balance change with continuity in the post-Elizabeth era. Thunder seemed to sense the gravity of the moment, standing quietly in his stall with his intelligent eyes focused on King Charles. The stallion's behavior reinforced the staff's claims about his emotional intelligence and his deep connection to the royal family. His presence served as a living reminder of Queen Elizabeth's enduring influence on everyone who had been touched by her life. Other members of the stable staff began gathering at respectful distances, understanding that they were witnessing a moment that would become part of royal legend. The outcome of this confrontation would be discussed in castle corridors for years to come, and would likely influence how future disputes between tradition and change would be resolved within the royal household. King Charles made his decision with the wisdom of someone who understood both the practical needs of the present and the emotional weight of the past. He gently but firmly supported Captain Mitchell's position, explaining to Queen Camilla that Thunder needed more time to adjust to life without Queen Elizabeth. The king's words carried the authority to end the confrontation, but they also created new tensions within the royal marriage. Captain Mitchell felt an overwhelming sense of relief wash over him as he realized his career would survive this unprecedented challenge to royal authority. However, he also understood that his relationship with Queen Camilla had been permanently altered by his decision to oppose her wishes. The political dynamics within the royal household had shifted in ways that would affect his daily duties for months or years to come. Queen Camilla's reaction to her husband's decision was controlled, but clearly disappointed. She maintained her royal composure while privately questioning whether excessive sentimentality was preventing the royal family from moving forward in healthy ways. Her concerns about Thunder's physical conditioning and the precedent being set by allowing staff to override royal commands remained valid, even if they had been overruled. Princess Anne approached Thunder's stall and spoke to him in the same gentle tones her mother had used throughout their long relationship. The stallion responded immediately, moving toward her voice and allowing her to stroke his neck through the stall bars. This moment demonstrated the deep connections that existed between Thunder and the royal family. Members who had grown up around him, the king announced that Thunder would be given as much time as needed to grieve properly, and that his eventual return to regular exercise would be handled gradually and sensitively. Professional equine therapists would be consulted to ensure that Thunder's emotional recovery was managed with the same care that would be provided to any family member dealing with profound loss. Stable Master Hayes felt vindicated in his assessment of Thunder's condition, but he also recognized the delicate position this placed him in regarding future interactions with Queen Camilla. His expertise had been acknowledged and respected, but the political cost of opposing royalty was something he would need to navigate carefully. In the days ahead, the assembled stable staff began to disperse as the immediate crisis passed, but conversations continued in hushed tones throughout the day. Captain Mitchell's willingness to risk his career for the sake of a grieving horse had earned him enormous respect among the castle employees, many of whom had their own cherished memories of Queen Elizabeth's kindness and dignity. Thunder's behavior noticeably improved as the confrontational energy around his stall dissipated. He moved more freely within his space and even showed interest in the fresh hay that had been placed in his feeding area earlier that morning. The stallion seemed to understand that the people who loved and understood him had prevailed in protecting his need for time and space. Queen Camilla requested a different horse for her morning ride, accepting the situation with outward grace while privately processing the implications of this very public disagreement with her husband's decision. Her choice of an alternative mount demonstrated her genuine desire to maintain her riding routine, even if it couldn't involve the specific horse she had originally requested. The king spent additional time with Thunder, sharing quiet moments that connected him to memories of his mother's daily routine. These personal visits would become a regular part of King Charles's schedule, ensuring that Thunder received the royal attention and affection that had been such an important part of his life with Queen Elizabeth. Captain Mitchell realized that his actions had established him as a guardian, not just of royal security, but of royal traditions and emotional well-being. His role had evolved beyond its formal job description to include protecting the intangible elements that made the monarchy meaningful to both the royal family and the British people. The incident became a turning point in how the royal household approached the delicate balance between necessary change and respectful continuity. Future decisions would be made with greater consideration for the emotional and symbolic weight of seemingly simple, practical matters, recognizing that every choice carried implications for the monarchy's connection to its own history and values. Weeks passed after the confrontation, and the royal household settled into new routines that accommodated both change and respect for tradition. Captain Mitchell found his daily duties remained unchanged, but his reputation within the castle had been significantly enhanced by his willingness to stand up for what he believed was right. Younger guards often sought his advice, recognizing him as someone who understood the deeper meaning of service to the crown. Thunder's recovery progressed slowly but steadily, under the careful attention of equine specialists and the loving care of the stable staff. The stallion began eating more regularly and showed increased interest in his surroundings. His daily routine included gentle grooming sessions and short walks around the stable grounds, always supervised by people who understood his special emotional needs and his significance to the royal family. Queen Camilla developed a new appreciation for the complexities of royal life that extended beyond formal protocols and public appearances. Her interactions with the stable staff became more thoughtful and considerate, as she began to understand the deep personal connections that existed between the royal family and the people who served them. This experience taught her valuable lessons about the emotional landscape she had married into. King Charles established a new tradition of spending time with Thunder each morning, creating a ritual that honored his mother's memory while building his own relationship with the remarkable stallion. These quiet moments became precious to the king, providing him with a sense of continuity and connection to the parent, who had shaped his understanding of duty and service. Princess Anne's support for Captain Mitchell's position had strengthened her already strong reputation as a protector of royal traditions and values. Her intervention in the stable confrontation was seen by many as an example of how senior royals could provide guidance and wisdom during difficult transitions. Her relationship with Thunder continued to flourish, and she often accompanied her brother during his morning visits. The stable staff developed an even deeper appreciation for Thunder's role as a living link to Queen Elizabeth's legacy. Their care for the stallion became more than just a job. It was a way of continuing to serve the late Queen and maintaining the standards of excellence she had expected in all aspects of royal life. Thunder's well-being became a point of pride for everyone involved in his care. Captain Mitchell's decision to stand firm had ripple effects throughout the Royal Protection Service. Other guards began to understand that their duties included protecting not just physical safety, but also the intangible values and traditions that gave meaning to the monarchy. This broader understanding of their role led to more thoughtful and nuanced approaches to their daily responsibilities. Thunder began to show signs of his former personality as his grief gradually transformed into something more manageable. He started responding more enthusiastically to visitors, showed interest in training activities, and even displayed moments of the playful energy that had charmed Queen Elizabeth for so many years. His recovery became a symbol of hope and resilience for everyone who had mourned the late Queen's passing. The relationship between King Charles and Queen Camilla grew stronger as they worked through the lessons learned from their disagreement about Thunder. They developed better communication about sensitive issues and a deeper appreciation for each other's perspectives on balancing tradition with practical necessity. Their marriage benefited from having navigated this challenging situation together. Stable Master Hayes received recognition for his expertise and dedication during Thunder's difficult period. His knowledge of both horse psychology and royal traditions made him an invaluable resource for managing the transition period. The king personally thanked him for his service and his wisdom in handling such a delicate situation with professional skill and emotional sensitivity. The story of Captain Mitchell's stand became legendary within the royal household, inspiring conversations about duty, courage, and the true meaning of service to the crown. New employees were often told the story as an example of how to balance respect for authority with commitment to deeper values and principles that define their role in supporting the royal family. Thunder's gradual return to health and happiness represented more than just successful animal care. It symbolized the royal family's ability to honor the past while building a future that maintained the best elements of their traditions. The stallion's recovery journey paralleled the monarchy's own process of adapting to life after Queen Elizabeth while preserving the values and connections that made their institution meaningful to millions of people around the world. 6 months after the confrontation, Thunder was ready for his first ride since Queen Elizabeth's death. The moment was carefully planned and surrounded by the people who had supported his recovery journey. Captain Mitchell stood watch as King Charles approached the magnificent stallion, who seemed to understand the significance of this milestone in his healing process. The king's first ride on Thunder was gentle and brief, focusing more on re-establishing trust and connection than on exercise or training. Thunder responded beautifully, his natural grace and intelligence shining through as he carried his new royal rider around the private grounds of Windsor Castle. The stallion's recovery was complete, but his new relationship with King Charles honored rather than replaced his bond with Queen Elizabeth. Captain Mitchell watched the successful ride with deep satisfaction, knowing that his controversial decision months earlier had contributed to this positive outcome. Thunder's psychological well-being had been protected during his most vulnerable period, allowing him to heal properly and return to his role as a cherished member of the royal household. The guard's instincts had been proven correct, and his willingness to risk his career had been vindicated. Queen Camilla observed the ride from a respectful distance, having developed a new understanding of Thunder's special status within the royal family. Her relationship with the stallion had evolved into one of mutual respect rather than ownership, and she had found other horses in the royal stable that better suited her riding preferences and personality. The experience had taught her valuable lessons about the emotional complexities of royal life. Princess, and joined her brother for subsequent rides, and Thunder seemed to thrive on the attention from multiple members of the royal family. His recovery had opened new possibilities for connection and continuity between past and present, allowing Queen Elizabeth's memory to live on through positive experiences rather than just grief and loss. The stable staff took enormous pride in Thunder's successful transition to his new life. Their patient care and emotional support had made the difference between a traumatized animal and a healthy, happy horse who continued to serve the royal family with dignity and grace. Stable Master Hayes received a commendation for his expertise and dedication during the difficult months of Thunder's recovery. Captain Mitchell's career continued to flourish, with his reputation for principled leadership earning him increased responsibilities within the Royal Protection Service. His willingness to stand up for his convictions had marked him as someone who truly understood the deeper meaning of service to the crown. Younger guards sought his mentorship, knowing he could teach them about both practical security matters and the values that made their work meaningful. Thunder became a symbol of successful change management within the royal household. His story demonstrated how tradition and progress could coexist when handled with wisdom, patience, and respect for emotional complexities. The stallion's journey from grief to renewed purpose inspired similar approaches to other challenging transitions within the monarchy. The relationship between King Charles and Queen Camilla had been strengthened by their experience of working through the Thunder situation. They had learned to communicate more effectively about sensitive issues and to appreciate each other's perspectives on balancing change with continuity. Their marriage had benefited from successfully navigating this early test of their partnership in royal life. Years later, Captain Mitchell would retire with full honors, knowing that his most important contribution to royal service had been his willingness to protect Thunder during the stallion's darkest hours. The guard's decision to stand firm had preserved not just an animal's well-being, but an important connection to Queen Elizabeth's legacy and the values she had embodied throughout her remarkable reign. Thunder lived many more happy years as a beloved member of the royal stable, carrying multiple generations of the royal family and serving as a living reminder of the continuity that connected past, present, and future. His successful recovery became part of royal legend, inspiring future generations of royal servants to consider the deeper implications of their daily decisions and actions. The story of the royal guard, who stood firm, became a teaching tale within the monarchy, illustrating how true service sometimes required the courage to respectfully challenge authority in defense of higher principles. Captain Mitchell's legacy lived on through the many guards he mentored and the precedent he established for thoughtful, principled leadership in service to the crown.